And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hi everyone, Meteorologist Joel Curtis with your marine weather. Forecast issued Wednesday, September 24th. So let's get started. First of all, the sea ice edge. Same message as yesterday. The ice desk is seeing just a little bit of ice formation along the ice shelf. And our peak was September 10th for our minimum ice shelf. Okay, so take a look at the satellite image. A fairly strong low in the Gulf of Alaska. So what we've got here is a 997 millibar low starting up over northeastern Siberia, just north of the Gulf of Anadyr. It will be moving down toward Nunivak Island. We have the main low, which is 986 millibars. It's due south of Seward, northeast of Kodiak. Plenty of thunderstorms out over the Gulf. Earlier today, they were making it onshore, particularly in the North Panhandle. And still some potential overnight in the Gulf. And then keep your eye on that 1002 millibar low on the very south end of our map. That low is the one that is going to come up on Friday and will reach Baranof Island at a deep 971 millibars. It's anywhere from storm force to hurricane force. This is a particularly dangerous weather system. High wind watches have already been issued for southern southeast Alaska, and there will be plenty of marine warnings in the afternoon and evening package. So that's a major situation. And then we have a weak remnants of a low over Cook Inlet, 991 millibars. And that low from Siberia has dropped down to Nunivak Island, about 990 millibars. And that will be, there'll be a good deal of northerly winds on the backside of that low, the western and northern side, and then plenty of northwesterlies hitting the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula, and then going out into the Gulf. So let's take a look at the marine forecast for southeast Alaska. Starting out for Thursday, lots of 20 knots on the outside, except up by Cape Suckling, about easterly 25 knots, and seas generally about 13 feet. On the inside waters, southeasterlies 20 knots, a few gusts up in Lynn Canal to 35, and seas ranging anywhere from about 3 to about 6 feet. For Friday, however, you can see that storm force low making it to Baranof Island at least 50 knots, showing up off of Baranof Island as southwesterlies, 45 knot whole gale off of Prince of Wales, and the gusts will be way up there, probably as much as 65 knots. On the inside waters, whole gale and Clarence Strait, 45 knots, seas 15 feet. Otherwise, gale force, 35 knots, and seas 7 to 8 feet on the inside. And then note that on the outside waters in the northern section, 20 to all the way up to gale force 35 knots, blowing in toward that low along the shore. So for Thursday's marine forecast for South Central, small craft advisory 25 knots in the easterly section, seas up to about 13 feet. Down off of Seward, northerly winds blowing into that low, about 15 knots, seas 9 feet, much less fetch down there. And Cook Inlet, 15 up to 20 knots, seas up to 5 feet, and through Kennedy Entrance, seas up to 6 feet. Then for Friday, off of Cape Suckling, 25 knots westerlies, and then as you get down into Cook Inlet area, because the center of the low is real close in there, winds ranging in the eastern sections 10 to 20 knots, seas up to 7 feet or up to 8 feet on the outside waters for small craft advisory. But in Prince William Sound, only 10 knots, seas 2 feet. Upper Cook Inlet, 10 knots, seas 2 feet. But a westerly gale down at the southern end of Cook Inlet from Augustine Island, 35 knots, seas 10 feet, and out through Kennedy Entrance, northwesterlies 30 knots, seas 8 feet. So for Thursday's marine forecast, generally westerlies on the Bering Sea side, 20 to 30 knots, seas up to 12 feet with a long fetch. And then down off of the Pacific side and into the Gulf, 15 to 25 knots in the northern section, seas up to 11 feet off of Kodiak Island. And then gale force, 35 knot westerlies, but seas only 8 feet with a very short fetch distance. And then for the Alaska Peninsula, as things get ramped up in the Gulf, 40 knots on the Bering Sea side and seas up to 16 feet with a real long fetch. Then on the Pacific side and the Gulf side, small craft 25 knots, seas up to 7 feet off of Kodiak Island, and 30 to 40 knots off the Alaska Peninsula, seas ranging up to 9 feet with just enough fetch to get up to that 9 feet. So for Thursday's marine forecast for the Aleutians, we've got generally a westerly component on all the winds. Most of them also have a northerly component. On the Bering Sea side, 20 to 30 knots, seas up to 12 feet with the long fetch. And then on the Pacific side, winds ranging from 20 to 30 knots and seas up to 11 feet. Then on Friday, we've got gale force off of Alaska, westerlies and up to 15 feet. Otherwise, 30 knots on all across the Bering Sea side, and 30 knots on the Pacific side as well, with a southerly component, and starting to feel that next system in the far western Aleutians with some warm air coming up with that. So for the West Coast, generally northerlies. 15 to 20 knots in the northern section, gale force 35 knot westerlies near St. Matthew. Otherwise, northerlies 25 to 30 knots and seas up to 10 feet in the Pribilofs. Then for Friday's marine forecast, we've got, first of all, in Norton Sound, northeasterlies 20 knots, seas 4 feet. Then we got small craft 25 knots, seas up to 7 feet along the west coast. And then as we get further south off the southwest coast, northwesterlies, gale force 35 knots, and seas up to about 15 feet in the Pribilofs, a little bit less as you get closer into the beach. Okay, so for the Arctic coast, we've got westerlies along the north slope from the Chukchi Sea and the Beaufort Sea, 10 to 15 knots, seas up to about 3 feet. And then as you get down to Kotzebue Sound, westerlies 10 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet, and down through the Bering Strait, anywhere from westerly component of the wind, 10 to 15 knots, seas up to 4 feet. Then on Friday, only 10 knots along the north slope, 5 knots into the Chukchi Sea, seas up to 2 feet. And then we start picking up some northerly off of Cape Lisburne, seas up to 4 feet with 10 knots, and then down through the Bering Strait, 20 knots, seas up to 8 feet off of Campbell, otherwise 4 feet in a little bit more protected waters. So that's it for your marine forecast. Please make sure that everybody knows where you're going and file a float plan with people you care about, and we'll keep track of you. Stay safe out there. Friday looks like a really rough day in the Gulf of Alaska, and also on the backside of that low near Nunivak Island. Thanks for tuning in.